better count me down. I'm a self-destruct. When it comes to the best, it ain't hard to choose. For your sport shows, updates, and interviews, the only way is the right way, I might say. Nobody doing it better, y'all some lightweights. Malik Wright, up all day and all night, pushing all the buttons up to something till it's alright. He looking at it from all sides and angles, got a stripes on his body like he played for the Bengals. Oh man, there's no one discussing it. They came, they stayed, they either did it or done it. Man, I love it, cause all they ever do is win. So kick back, relax, the TWSN.
Shout out Young Switch.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in. Thank you for tuning in yet again to State of the Jungle, presented as always by the Right Way Sports Network. I'm your host, not as always, Evan McPhillips. Unfortunately, Malik is feeling under the weather today, so he was the last minute, will not be playing. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my co-host, as always, Daniel, Logan. We've got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We've actually got some football to actually talk about now. So Bengals' first preseason game, obviously coming off a loss to the Eagles. A lot of immediate reactions, a lot of feelings by a lot of people. What are your guys' immediate takeaways after that game?
Yeah, I think for me, mainly I was very glad to be watching football and seeing it on my screen, seeing the starters go out there and do what we expected them to do. Obviously, you try not to overreact or underreact to anything you see, but I think we all know that is very difficult to do. It's much easier said than done. Obviously, some offensive line problems, obviously some defensive problems. But I will say I at least feel like nothing was super unexpected. You know, I'm glad there wasn't like, man, like this guy's really bad or this is way worse than we think or you know what I mean? Like it felt a little more as we expected, which I think for a preseason game is almost what you want. You don't want to be walking out with more questions than you had coming into the week. And I don't think the Bengals are in that spot, which is a very, very, very good spot to be in right now. Starters escaped healthy. Starters played great against the backups, whatever. It was about what you expect out of a preseason game. Again, I'm not trying to overreact to or underreact to anything. I think it almost just went exactly how it should go. You know, the backups didn't look great. The starters look great. And I'm just glad we got football to watch. I'm glad we still have some more things to talk about as we go into it. But, you know, first reaction was just like, that's exactly how it should have looked. And I'm glad nothing went terribly wrong and just went completely off the wall.
Yeah, man. I'll let Evan get in here right now because obviously we did our post-game show. I think the biggest bright spot and the biggest takeaway is try not to read as much into it as possible. That's what I'm telling myself, at least, because the main topic on the show is something that was discussed all over social media in Bengals world is their defense. And if you turn on the first game of the season and you see that defense, the first thought in my eyes and the first thought I'm sure in many people's eyes was, what's changed? Like this is our number one defense. This is what we're doing against backups. What the hell has changed? We're going to talk about the defense, but like I said, I'm going to give it grace because obviously not every single starter was playing, but that is definitely the focal point because at the end of the day, the offense looked spectacular. And that's what you're going to get, right? It is very rare. Go look at, once again, we had the pleasure of seeing a ton of preseason games. I don't know if everybody was watching everything, but you saw some starters out there. It's like, man, teams don't have anything going for them. They don't know who their quarterback is. The Saints, you got so many different teams. So the Bengals at least have their functioning offense that looked superhuman. And they looked like, hey, that is a shoo-in for a top 3 offense right away. But Evan.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there that I want to kind of emphasize a little bit, that this is the first preseason game, as Logan said, and you saw a lot of good, bad, some rust, especially on special teams and on defense. It's a lot of what you expect the first preseason game to look like, especially one where much of the second, third, and even sometimes fourth string guys are playing as they're battling that out. It's important not to read too much into things like especially PFF grades when you're talking about these really small samples. I mean, some of these guys are playing 8, 10, 12 snaps, right?
Yep.
So you don't want to draw too many conclusions. But with that being said, let's speculate wildly based on that one game. So,
Let's do
guys,
it.
Yeah.
what are your fun takeaways? Let's talk winners and losers first. Let's look at the offense. How are you feeling about the offense? We saw a little bit of the starters. We got to see a little bit of Jake Browning and the backups. What are your takeaways on the offensive side of the ball for the Bengals?
I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me like pretty early on throughout everything, again, the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, all those people, they did exactly what we expected them to do. But the thing that really caught my attention those first few series, not even necessarily just with the starters, but the drives after, was the Charlie Jones usage, man.
Yeah.
We were kind of up here writing him off last year.
I know.
I was like, yeah, dude, Isaiah Williams, he looks like he's getting more reps. And, that's where I was at. We talked about him being a potential cut candidate, but now he's getting reps with the first team. He's getting snaps there. He's making some plays. He's doing things. I know he's never really had the opportunity to necessarily show it here, but he also really never done anything to deserve more either at the same time. So I think, us especially, me especially, we're kind of writing him off at this point. And, maybe that's what they're doing. They're throwing him out there now to try to make up for lost time, what they should have already known what he is. But I think him being out there was very, I don't want to say surprising, but kind of surprising. Like him working out with the first, he took snaps with Joe. He took snaps with the second string and did his thing and looked pretty solid. It's just another solid body in the wide receiver room. And, maybe it's much later than we expected, but I think that was by far the biggest thing that kind of shocked me is that Charlie Jones seemed to be involved and they wanted to get him on the field and see what he got. Again, maybe let's see what you got, Charlie, before you get cut kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but he was out there early and he played pretty well when given the opportunity on last Friday.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that was definitely surprising. I mean, because we were literally on the show and I was even saying, man, at some point it just becomes too little too late. But I think he's the type of guy the Bengals love. Hey, he's probably going to slide in the back end of the roster. You keep him on there, whether they go with him or Burton for, punt return duties. But one guy I think that, I'll mention, I'm sure we'll talk about him, Dylan Fairchild, right? Obviously the right guard spot. We are going to talk about Lucas Patrick, but at least day one, game one, you see the promise, right? You see the hope. You see, hey, that guy, you drafted him with a third-round pick. When I look at third-round picks, I want that guy to at least be a capable contributor for 4 years of my football team. And I think Dylan showed that from day one. So I think immediately we are going to talk about, like I said, the right guard spot, but he could make the Bengals' lives a lot easier if he does what he did preseason game one. And that was his first NFL rep. So for me, when we're looking at the major holes that can derail the season, because that's what I'm looking at right now is, hey, how can this season go wrong? And what are the possible solutions? Dylan Fairchild is a huge name that I can circle because, hey, if he turns into a key, consistent contributor, I look at this offensive line and I know Lucas Patrick obviously is the weak spot, but God damn it, you have 2 bookend tackles and you've got a center in Ted Karras who's been consistent. Now you got a guy in Dylan Fairchild. If he's consistent, that's something we can work with and we can turn our full efforts obviously into that right guard position. But this is a lot better than what the Bengals were doing 3-4 years ago. So Dylan Fairchild has the ability to make the Bengals look like geniuses and continue their ways of, not really emphasizing the guard spot. But man, he deserves a huge shout out, at least for game one. Not that we're overreacting. So
right. Burrow and Chase look sharp, man. Not surprising. That's obviously really encouraging. It's going to have to be a lot of that to be able to propel the Bengals offense to overcome a lot of the defensive woes that I think a lot of people are expecting. And maybe even are just around the corner if you are to believe the defensive performance in the preseason game, if we're reading too much into things. Tanner Hudson, while we're talking about the offense. Dude, between Joe Burrow liking Tanner Hudson so much and Darren Simmons liking Tanner Hudson so much, I think he might be safe, which really makes the tight end room an interesting conversation.
Fourth quarter though too.
I know.
Yeah.
It's
Getting the reps, man. But I mean, you figure you got Mike Gesicki, you got Noah Fant, you've got Tanner Hudson, you're probably keeping Drew Sample. So you're losing McLaughlin and Gundy or Grundy. That's
it's just awkward because I don't think anybody up here really loves Tanner Hudson, but he's a fine worst tight end on your roster, pass catcher. But when is he ever going to see the field? like if Mike Gesicki goes down, it's Noah Fant time. If Noah Fant goes down, like are both of them going to be down? Then who knows what kind of
Let's hope not.
It feels like a weird. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with it, but like you said, like he's playing early, he's playing late, he's playing often, he's scoring touchdowns with the first team, scoring touchdowns with Desmond Ridder. Like everything about it is weird, but he's playing, and he's not like he's ever been super terrible. It's just like he's an awkward guy, man. I don't know.
No, Chase Brown, shout out for him. Obviously, looking spry, looking explosive, ready to pick back up where he left off last season after they kind of got him in rhythm and involved in the offense a little more effectively. Very excited to see what he can do with a full season of work as the main guy, especially with a revamped offensive line that, like you said, with Fairchild, you hope has a little bit more nasty to its game. I flip over to the other side of the ball where things are not as rosy as they were for the first team or the second team on offense. Man, they were struggling to get pressure. I mean, the first takeaway is obviously, man, like they're really going to miss Trey if he ends up holding out at all. But yeah, it's very discouraging to see the inability to get pressure for a lot of the game against the backups for the Eagles offensive line. Talk to me about what you guys saw from the defense. What concerns you? What do you think might linger in the regular season?
I mean, what we saw or what we didn't see. I mean, that's two different questions. I think I'll just start this off. It is a concern for pure pass rushing downs. That's where my concern is. And I'm talking about the edge positions, right? Hey, we'll talk about Shemar in a second, but the two main guys I'm circling is the two guys that are expected to be starters, that the two guys without Trey or the two starters on the depth chart, Joseph Ossai and Myles Murphy. I saw good things with Joseph Ossai in the run game multiple times. I thought he, held his own, contained his side, forced runs up the middle. I thought he did well. Malik, obviously, and we talked about this on the post-game show, Myles Murphy had a good couple run stops on the goal line as well. I just don't see the pressure on the edge, and that's what concerns me because it makes Trey Hendrickson that much more valuable. And like I said, I think Ossai and Myles Murphy are good situational guys, but your hopes lie from a pass rushing standpoint at the edge. For me, maybe I'm overreacting, but I'm circling and hey, if you want to pass rush from your edge rushers, it's Trey Hendrickson and Shemar Stewart, and that's it. I'm not going to bank respectfully. I'm not going to bank right now on Myles Murphy playing 50 snaps on the edge and expecting him to dominate as a pass rusher. That's not where I'm at. I think that you could move him inside. Same thing with Joseph Ossai. I can't expect those guys to dominate from a pass rushing standpoint. And that was the biggest thing that I saw from the defensive line, I would say.
Yeah, I think with the defensive line, obviously nobody really stood out in terms of just winning. But I do think there was a very obvious effort to work the stunts, to work the twists, to, that stuff that we haven't necessarily seen before, and that can slow down some of the, the pressure and just the timing because they are so focused on repping that new stuff like that's for like, hey, I know the timing's not going to be great. Hey, I know these might not get home, but let's just rep the crap out of them. That's, it's something new for us. We need to get a ton of reps at it. And I think that was very obvious that their effort there. The coverage game didn't look great either. I mean, like top down, nobody looked great doing that. I know Johnny Wilson's just 6'8", and that's gonna be tough to do no matter what. But I tweeted a couple of people that we got a dude wearing 41 cooking us. That is not a good sign at all.
Bad vibes.
Yeah, and again, coverage is hard. It wasn't like many. I don't know. It was just the secondary didn't feel super in unison and in sync in terms of just making plays on the ball and being able to make plays when we needed and just really just being around the receivers and everything just kind of fell. And that applies into the linebackers too, man.
Just being around the offensive players. That's kind of important on defense.
It was just
what do you
weird.
think of the linebackers?
I mean, they were okay-ish.
Barrett Carter had some moments.
Yeah, Logan Wilson looked a little slow, but Barrett Carter had a couple good plays. Knight, was not like, when linebackers have average games like that, which is pretty normal. Right. That just what do you say? Like he played linebacker today. Like he didn't do bad. He didn't do great.
He played 14 snaps, had one tackle.
That's fine. Yeah. Barrett Carter, you can kind of see the fun with him.
Right.
I forget the I forget the dude's name who had the pick six. Or
Davis.
Giles Harris. Or
Giles
whatever,
Harris.
Giles
something.
Harris, yeah.
You know, it was a pretty good play. But
Yeah,
it's
DJ
just-
Ivy had a rough night at the office.
Yeah, it's just nothing was great in that back half. I mean, nothing was great in either in any 11 in the front. But I don't know. There's not much positives there. But again, we were playing with a lot of guys out on that side of the ball at least. So.
Yeah, I think just looking at, obviously this is preseason, we're going to look at this and be like, why the hell were we discussing these guys? But I think, Giles Harris, that was fun. And he even made another play. I forgot what exactly it was. But he looked good. And I think as the back end of, the depth chart, I've raved about a guy, and I'll say him again, Shaka Hayward. I think that these are guys that are fine depth pieces. And hey, I'm cool with it. I think that this room, respectfully, as we look at this roster as it is, the linebacking room, I think is going to be, you have to have it be one of your best rooms. And I think that is the pathway to it being your best room on the entire defense, because you've got guys that I can see the ceiling, I can see the floor this season. Hey, by week 4, week 5, you got these guys rotating in different positions, and you're not going into a week even concerned about what you're getting, out of Demetrius Knight after week 5. So I've got hope for those guys, and I'm excited to see, those guys continue to get reps in the preseason. But the secondary, there's just not much to say. Like Jordan Battle, they didn't play well. Like they didn't do anything out of the ordinary. Like obviously the one play we talked about, but the running play and then Jordan Battle caught him. Like, what do you say? Like, he's supposed to catch him, and he made a good tackle, and that's something I've been a huge fan of, but they just didn't pop. And the back end guys, they need more reps, because I feel like we'll have a lot more to say, and we'll be able to confirm what we saw if we see this against the Commanders, and if we see this one more time for these back end guys.
I do think when it comes to the secondary, we needed just to see everybody in a little bit more of extended time. Maybe they're getting that in practice. That's, we don't really know exactly how that's working, but like this, it's very hard to rotate in the secondary and expect people to continue to perform. Like it's one of those positions where you go out there. That's why you don't usually see teams rotate corners and do this thing. Like you get in the flow, you start to pick up on things as the game goes on. When you're taking guys in and out, it gets a little harder to do that. Again, maybe that's just trying to be positive about the situation, but I did want to throw that in there.
Well, and one last thing about that too. We didn't even see Dax Taylor, Cam Taylor-Britt. So it's like, those are the guys that I'm hoping to see. And you hope, once you knock on wood, obviously cornerback is one of the most injury prone positions, I would say, but you hope that those two guys are your guys, and those guys have shown flashes. Dax Hill's supposed to be your cornerback one. So I'm excited to see them healthy, and I'm excited to see those guys play.
Well, Daniel, I think you kind of nailed it earlier on the defense when you said it was nothing out of the ordinary, because the ordinary for them, unfortunately, was letting up big plays and constantly just having wide open areas of guys uncovered on defense. And we saw more of the same in this preseason game, even with a different defensive coordinator, even with different guys in there right now. So hopefully that is just trying to work out the kinks, a little bit of preseason week 1. Again, we don't want to read too much into, the performances of the 2s and the 3s and so on. But definitely something that we need to monitor going forward. As we look with our eye toward the defense, I think that calls to question one performer that everybody's had their eye on, not only throughout the game, but also throughout camp, and that's Shemar Stewart.
Yep.
Keeping in mind the issues that the Bengals are having getting pressure, do you gamble on the athletic upside of a guy like Shemar Stewart and make him the starter from week 1?
Man, I don't know if it's like a coaching thing for me or what, but I've started to hate like labeling starters. Like I can tell my kids all the time, you're maybe not starting, but dude, you're still gonna play just as much as you were if you weren't. Like, what I mean? That's the thing. Like I think Shemar Stewart is gonna have his role, and whether he takes the first snap or the 10th snap, I don't envision it.
Okay, let me reclassify, because I have the same problem as you do.
Like,
okay. Is he getting the second most defensive end snaps outside of Trey Hendrickson?
I would say probably yes. I think in terms of total snaps, maybe they'll kick him inside a little bit like they were doing. I think you just have to. Like I hate to kind of be that guy almost about it, but like you don't have much to lose. Not that I don't think Miles Murphy can be a good player, continue to develop, but it's just when you have that, I talked about it last week, man. When you have a guy with the upside he has, you need to get him on the field and get him playing. You're gonna, like in the first play of the game last week when Slayton kind of maybe jumped to the wrong gap or whatever.
Mhm.
If that's Shemar Stewart, maybe he's got enough athletic ability to spin around to make a play or track him down from behind. Like that's just something that nobody else, not many people in the NFL can do besides the greats. And it's just the defense has nothing. Like keeping him on the field and just hoping he can push the pocket or just make a crazy athletic play, get a tip, just be the best athlete on the field is always going to be super likely when he's on the field. And if you're just keeping a guy off the field when again he could be the most athletic person on the field, feels dumb.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, we're going to get to all you guys' comments. So if you guys can, just drop your questions down below. We appreciate you guys. But Shemar Stewart, for me, there was a lot of inconsistency, obviously, in his preseason week 1. But this is a guy where, once again, maybe we don't label him the starter, but he's getting a lot of snaps from week 1. And this is my developmental philosophy, especially of, hey, he is a round 1 talent. I would much rather this guy learn now. Like we saw some of the plays. I mean, some of the stunts, it looks like the dude's never done a stunt before, right? Yeah. And it's like, you got to get him these reps now. And I just think, sure, maybe he messes up, but it's not like this dude, like I don't want him playing 55, 60 snaps, but he needs to get serious snaps from week 1, because if we're looking at this team, hey, as a championship level team, there's a real possibility that this dude could be a legit factor come week 18, come playoff time. But the only way he does that is if he gets the reps now. And so
that's a fantastic point to bring about it too. Like, yes, like we need him to develop. We want him to be good, but there's a good chance, like if this team is like we would hope and expect, competing in the playoffs, competing for a Super Bowl, like the ceiling is so much higher if Shemar Stewart is taking those leaps and bounds. And obviously maybe at the beginning of the year, maybe it costs you a big play here and there, but everybody else is giving them up too. It's that potential for him to be super ready late in the year when season's on the line the most that I think makes me want him on the field even more to start.
Bro, and the last point I'll make, specifically about his play is like, it's the one play. And this is, I know I sound like a broken record, but I've said this so many times. On quarterback rollouts, I don't think the Bengals have had a guy on the right side or the left side of the defensive line that can do what Shemar does. I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Sam Hubbard, we've seen Joseph Ossai, we've seen Miles Murphy just fail to be able to corral the fast quarterback or make the quarterback feel something. And obviously it was preseason, but on the rollout, the quarterback, you put his hands up in the air and it was an incomplete pass. And Shemar Stewart is not a small dude. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at that from the quarterback's advantage and you see his hands, I don't think there's another guy on the Bengals right now that can consistently make those plays on third down. So maybe you just throw him in there on 3rd and long. Sure. But this is a guy I think you are going to be extremely annoyed that you didn't play earlier come playoff time, because I think you're going to need him in the playoffs this year.
You guys make some good points, and I hear you. And in return, I just want to let you know that this is a safe space, and it's okay to be very wrong here. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of why there.
Okay.
This was already a very raw prospect coming out, right? This is already about as you're an athlete and you need to develop yes, you have, again, all the physical ability in the world to be a good pass rusher, a good run defender. You have the length, the strength, everything you need, the speed. The awareness, especially in even run defense, was not entirely there, which is supposed to be your strength. You've come significantly later than all the other rookies to camp, and it showed when you were on the field the other day. I think he needs that time to build up his football shape, because he hasn't been doing the football shape stuff that everyone else has been doing since May, June, right? So that's just you're 2.5 months behind everybody else already, and you're trying to get on the field right now. Again, that's a football shape thing. Think about how Miles Murphy looked weeks 1 to 8 versus weeks 8 to 16 after the bye, right? That's when I'm looking at this and going, not only is he a raw prospect, not only is he missed time already, not already is he out of shape and you don't want to push the guy too hard. Otherwise you might get injured and then you really hamper your development as a rookie. you've also moving him all over the defensive line, having him learn multiple spots. And I understand absolutely he should be getting that kind of experience at some point. But to your point, we need someone on the edge. We need someone just dialed in, contributing there. Absolutely. It'd be nice to have him kick inside and just be an athlete and wreak havoc. And maybe that's what you do. Maybe you specialize him as that edge player and then say, hey, we're going to let you just be more of a raw bull rusher and from the middle and just push the pocket and collapse it on the quarterback. And that'd be great. That'd be enough. That'd be fine. But overloading someone who's already been a raw prospect, who's already trying to develop cerebral, like more awareness and more football IQ, much like Demetrius Knight. He hasn't had 6-7 years in college, right? To develop all of that knowledge and that Rolodex of understanding. So I take all of that in with like the experience, shifting him around, late start, potential for injury, being out of shape, all of that development that speaks to me as like, hey, you can have a specialized pass rusher role. Like, right, you can be that NASCAR edge defender on third down. You can be that interior guy if we need you to sub in, or if BJ Hill is missing time and we need a little extra juice on the inside. That's where I see. And I don't mean to say, like I said, that he's not going to play 300, 400, 500 snaps, right? But I understand the pressure of the first round pick of needing to be on there. But also I do think that Myles Murphy is a lot of what you would get from Stewart, but has more of the polish of just being more familiar with the NFL, being more familiar with the game speed, being more familiar with how this scheme is going to work and just the ins and outs, and who he's also been working the whole time he's been at camp on his fundamentals, working with Jerry Montgomery. The whole idea of Jerry Montgomery is not only that he's going to help Shemar Stewart, it's that he's going to help all the defensive linemen, Chris Jenkins, McKinley Jackson, all of them. So I don't want to just discount Myles Murphy and Chris Jenkins and all these guys out of that. So I don't want to overlook them. That's why I'm kind of like, I'm in the same boat of like, yeah, Trey Hendrickson, then maybe you kind of get 300-400 snaps for Shemar and Myles Murphy and Joseph Osai with a variety of edge and kicking inside. But I would rather Shemar's playing 12 or 14 snaps week 1, 2, 3, as opposed to playing 30 or 40.
Yeah. I think in general with Shemar, and just to kind of go along with that, it's interesting because we kind of are having this conversation as if obviously Trey Hendrickson's here. But then he's not here. I think then everything like
then you have to, like, you don't have a choice
just,
at that point.
It's immediately like, let's fuck it, let's see what we got. But the other points I wanted to bring up too is like, somebody brought it up in the comments. I do think the defense line should and will be rotating pretty. Like I feel like as much as the top end talent is lacking on our defensive line, they make up for it in quality options. Maybe again, it's not the best high-end specific pass rushing options, but Joseph Osai, Myles Murphy, Shemar, even Cam Sample to a degree, like these guys that have good skills that will play in the NFL. But the thing with Shemar, like it's just there's not really anybody on this roster that can make a play that wins you a game, that that just takes over a game outside of Trey Hendrickson, that and just knowing that you have a guy like that has the potential to do all that stuff and you're not putting him on the field is the tough part. And maybe it's a slow rolling and it gets to week 6 and they're like, okay, dude, you're in, don't leave the field kind of thing. Maybe it gets to that point. I don't know how they're going to roll him in, but it's just like Evan said, we're not necessarily disagreeing. We're disagreeing in other ways. But
you're wrong.
The fact of the matter is Shemar Stewart has the upside and the potential to wreck games and to make plays that translate into a win, make that big sack, make a deflection. And we haven't seen that. We haven't had that yet. So just having that upside and potential in a player, I just feel like it's going to be so hard to keep him off the field, no matter how much he will struggle in other areas or making bonehead mistakes. But again, just having the potential to win you a game in one player is really tough to keep on the field, and your defense is so bad.
Yeah. And that's something where the hope is, right, that Al Golden's scheme is going to uplift everybody.
Yeah.
My philosophy with Shemar Stewart on this is, if this defense is looking the same come week 2, come week 3, we're saying, hey, you just gave up 28 to the Browns. You just gave up 30 to the Jags, and it's a slow moving. I think you need Shemar Stewart because
Yeah.
I just think that when you look at this defense, like I said, I'm going to give them time, and we got to see Dax, and then we got to see how the linebackers develop. And I do think that the entire tide, will raise all the boats on the team. But I just think that, man, Shemar is going to need the reps. And I really think that, hey, you took him with the first round pick. If we put ourselves in the shoes, and I understand this is a long-term play, whether he was the Bengals' idea of a replacement for Trey, or whether he was the Bengals' idea of a pairing for Star with Trey.
Yeah.
My idea, if I am the GM, I need that guy to play if I believed in him that much. That's how I'm looking at the rest of these guys. Jared Verse last year, and I know they're two different prospects. But if I draft a guy, I need that guy to contribute in the playoffs at least. And whatever it looks like
in the playoffs. And that's the key,
and
right?
Whatever it looks like to get him to that point, we've got to get him there. Because I do believe that this team, I believe whatever comes of the right guard spot, whatever comes of the defense, this team with a healthy Joe Burrow, I think they're too talented to not be in the mix come week 14, week 15, week 16.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to build up to. So I just hope that the Bengals aren't in that spot where they are clawing for it. And I think that this position is going to be a crucial spot to avoid them being in the mix for the 7th and 6th seed of the playoffs. So
no, if I like the idea of a slow rollout again. I agree with what you're saying about the investment of the first round pick, about his talent, about what he can bring. I definitely worry about the conditioning, the out of shape. Not that he's not working hard, just that it takes time. There's a reason that NFL teams don't ramp guys up. It's because that's how you get a hamstring that bothers you all season. And unfortunately, for a guy who largely thrives on explosive athleticism, getting a hamstring injury can really hamstring you.
I'm glad you brought that Evan up, Evan, because
I am too. I'm fucking hilarious.
He is. But I was thinking about, we just talked about Trey and Shemar and how things shift if he's not playing. But like everything Evan just said about Shemar, it's just going to be amplified for Trey, who's done even less. Obviously, Trey's been in the NFL and, he's used to it a little more. And yes, he just led the league in sacks. But as Bengals fans, we all know there's several times a game where Trey Hendrickson looks like he just died out for the year and he's limping off the field and he's holding his back. Yeah. He's doing all these things. And that's with full off season. That's with conditioning. That's with all these things. So it's like, let's say Trey signs, 2 days before the season starts. Now what's his workload look like week 1? Because is he going to go? He's not going to go out there and stop and play every rundown. He doesn't do that when he's healthy. So now, what are Trey snaps looking like? Like, there's so many. I hate to keep talking about Trey, but it's so annoying because that is such a massive factor that I think nobody is, incorporating it into this discussion. Because again, there's several times a game where Trey looks like he's hurt, and they're like, "Oh shit, what are we gonna do?" And then he comes back on the field and gets a sack. But like, now that's going to be amplified even more. Now we have that same issue with Shemar. Now we already don't have pass rush. And the only 2 guys that have a slimmer of hope of doing it didn't practice until a week ago. Now there's so many underlying annoyances with the D-line room. And again, it's a fun room when they're all physically present. And we haven't seen that yet. And it's getting real old.
Yep. I just want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in, joining us on your Wednesday night. Thank you. We've got a little over 700 people just between YouTube and Twitter watching right now. Thank you all again for tuning in, joining us. All happy to have you here. Please don't forget to give the video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. We will continue to bring you awesome content like the many interviews that Malik has had with Bengals players over the offseason. He's got a lot of things cooking right now. He's actually up in the kitchen as we speak. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and close the book on last week and look ahead to next week when they take on the Washington Commanders. What are you guys looking forward to in this game the most?
Ooh, I think feels like a small cop-out. I don't even know if he's going to play, but I'm excited to see no fan stripes. Yeah. I assume he's going to get out there to some degree. You would hope. At least, but kind of to see if we can get a sense on what their plan is for him. Is he going to kind of slide into a similar-ish role to Eric All, where I know he's not the blocker Eric All necessarily is, but is he going to play that traditional tight end role where he carves out a healthier role than we thought? How they use him, where they deploy him on the field. Is he in line? Is he in the slot? Just kind of seeing their game plan for that is something I'm really interested to see. And I think again. on the defensive side of the ball, I'm gonna continue to kind of talk about what I did earlier, the secondary, but the linebackers too. You know, again, linebacker is a very tough position to gauge, and especially in limited snaps. But you know, there wasn't too much like excitement there from the guys early on. Again, I know Logan Wilson's probably not, you know, itching to play in the preseason, and you know, like that stuff is harder to do than you think. But I'd like to see a little more juice from that first linebacker unit and just to kind of get some more excitement out of it, you know, like. But that's it.
Yeah, I think. Well, the first thing is weird. It's Monday night. I didn't even realize this is. Monday,
yeah,
this
it's
is
gonna
Monday
feel like
night.
an eternity.
Revenge game on Monday Night Football against the Commanders.
I know. I'm curious to see once again if the first off. I don't know how much starters are playing. Like they doing 2 drives again. So that's the first thing I'm curious to see. We didn't talk about it, but the quarterbacks. I'm curious to see Desmond Ridder. Like it's from a pure fun standpoint. You know what we're going to get with Jake Browning. Like Jake's not going to go out there and show you anything crazy. But for Bengals fans, everybody in the chat, I'm sure a lot of people haven't watched, you know, Desmond Ridder's snaps with the Falcons. Like this is a guy I'm curious to see what we get. It's either going to be crazy or he could go out there and crap the bed. But I want to see Desmond Ridder snaps just from the fact of, hey, like, let's see what he's got. I think it's exciting, and obviously it's a position you don't have to worry about the quarterback position because you have Joe Burrow. But it's something where I just want to see how the players rally around them, and you can also kind of tell if, hey, who's the guy that gets the offense moving more. So Desmond Ridder is a guy that I'm excited to see. Taj Brooks also. We talked about it a little bit on the post show. He was okay. Like it was fine. It wasn't anything special. I'm excited to see, can he show us more? I mean, he rushed for like 2.6 yards as carry. I know it was the backup offensive line, but give me some more Taj Brooks reps in there. And at the end of the day, I want to see more of the defensive line guys. Like we've talked about these guys, but Chris Jenkins, I want to see more, right? I just want to see more reps out of him because I thought he looked good last week. Like from a consistency standpoint, he pushed the pile multiple times. He got a couple stops. Chris Jenkins, I'm excited to see him. I'm excited to see McKinley Jackson because those are the guys I'm circling because, hey, it tends to be the guys that you drafted last year, 2 years ago that were 3rd, 4th round that just go away. Like you just kind of forget about those guys. But respectfully, Chris Jenkins, 2nd round pick, like that is a guy he has got to play and he's got to be a key contributor. So like I said, I'm circling him. And the biggest thing, I'm always excited to see these wide receivers. Like I think it's fun looking at these, you know, 5th, 6th, 7th guys getting a chance. Like the guy who caught the deep ball, what was his name? Jamoy something. Like those guys, like getting an opportunity just to see what they got. Hell, even if they're not going to make the roster, but obviously Jermaine Burton, we'll see what's the deal with him. I would like to see him out there and see what he can do as well as Charlie Jones. But those are just some of the positions I'm looking at him.
Yeah, I turn my attention to the Commanders' defensive line. I think it's going to offer a little bit more of an interesting look, an evaluation for the Bengals' offensive line. You got guys like Daron Payne, Javon Kinlaw, Von Miller, Trezon Newton, Cleveland Farrell, so Dietrich Wise, even like these are all really solid defensive linemen. And, you know, depending on how many guys are actually playing, even Eddie Goldman is not bad either. I think that's going to give you a better evaluation of some of these lower tier offensive linemen that we're a little concerned about right now. I look at that. I look at, you're not going to have Terry McLaurin. You're not going to have Noah Brown. This defense needs to look better.
Brown killed us.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, well, both of them did. Dear God. So between those two, you really want to be able to see, hey, this is a talented quarterback. How much Daniels actually ends up playing, we'll see. Yeah, but I do want to see this defense just generate some pressure with the other guys, right? Daniel mentioned it. You need to see Chris Jenkins trying to generate some pressure. McKinley Jackson had some really good high-end plays last week, but also had some really boneheaded, like you can't do this in your second year plays that I'm sure really infuriated a lot of Bengals coaches. So that the back of the defensive tackle room is going to be very interesting. The back of the wide receiver room is going to be very interesting. Those are two spots I'm really going to be looking at this game, trying to evaluate who's going to be on that bubble and kind of tier people a little bit. And I think this is going to give us a really good look at that.
Yeah, there's two more people, one person, one kind of room I want to touch on. The safety room.
Yes.
Obviously, Geno Stone's hurt. Tyson Anderson, DeJohn Anthony, and PJ Jules, man, have all been kind of getting their fair share of reps with the ones. And again, I don't know the likelihood of PJ Jules necessarily making the roster in this scenario, but I will say I remember him last year. I remember him obviously from the other day. That guy plays the game super hard, and you can kind of tell. And you grow to appreciate that so much. You can tell he's always around the ball. He's always flying around, and maybe that earns him that back end spot or whatever it is. Obviously, I don't know the severity of the Geno Stone injury, how long that's really going to keep him out. Obviously, Tyson Anderson, you would assume, is a roster lock due to special teams. DeJohn Anthony's got more versatility. So, I don't know the true likelihood of a guy like that making the team. But, I know he took some first-team snaps this week. Again, that's very, very not very important at this time of the year necessarily, especially nursing an injury. But just a guy that you've grown to appreciate over the last few preseasons. And then secondly is a guy I tweeted about, and Evan reminded me, I can't believe I forgot, Caleb Etienne from BYU, one of the left tackles that we've been running out. Again, fits the build of what the Bengals like, massive guys, 6'7", 6'8", 330 pounds. And he didn't even play that much against the Eagles, but he looked well in his limited snaps that he did get. And I'm just interested to see how he looks this week against the deeper D line, like Evan alluded to. And just, again, he fits the mold of the Bengals. He looked the part. They brought him in, UDFA from BYU. And again, he just looked really well in a limited sample. And maybe that's bad Eagles player he was going against, but I'm interested to see him play and get more opportunity and kind of just see where that can go.
For sure. And we got a lot of questions. We appreciate you guys with the questions. Keep dropping them down below. We see you like Dime and Bill Sparks, obviously Dave's. We're going to get to those questions at the end. The last point I'll make for the preseason, I think you said it best, and somebody, Chad Walter, said in the chat, DB reps. You're going to get chances. Like I said, I watched a couple of these other preseason games, and you're getting, these guys, you're getting chances. You're getting jump balls. You're getting backup quarterbacks throwing, passes where you have opportunities. We're talking red zone reps. We're talking, and it's basic stuff, but it's quick slants, it's fades. Go out and make a play. So for these guys, in hell, even these starters, right? You talked about it. These guys, Jordan Battle, DeJohn Anthony, you guys, they've got to be fighting for everything. And I'm just curious who goes out there and makes a play, especially in the safety room, because a lot of times you can go a whole game and be like, damn, what the hell what did Battle do? I didn't see him. But sometimes that's a good thing. But I want to see these guys make a play, especially the cornerbacks. I just would rather leave this preseason game seeing something more than we saw last week, because respectfully, I didn't see more than one play from the cornerbacks, and that's putting it honestly. And I think these guys are going to have their chances. DJ Turner, go out and make a play. And I think that maybe just get a little more lucky, have the ball bounce this way, but I think there's going to be opportunities to go out there and make a play. And one last point somebody made, I think Bill Sparks, they've got Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, two fast quarterbacks. Let's see the linebackers. We got to see the speed, whether it's even in Logan Wilson in the starters. I feel like you can tell how fast these guys play right away. So I'm just curious to see, how do these guys play when they're on the move? How are these linebackers doing covering the Austin Eckler's of the world? So linebackers, I'm definitely be looking at.
No, it's a very good point. Demetrius Knight, Carter, this is what you were drafted for, right? Like, this is what we've been saying about the linebacker position, that it needs to get more athletic, that it needs to get more talented going sideline to sideline. So this is going to be a good test, and that's a good point. Last point I wanted to make on it, as I kind of, put my eyes on an individual player, is Howard Cross.
Yeah.
He got so much run. He got 37 total snaps, 22 pass rushes, only had one hurry, 2 missed tackles, and no registered tackles.
But that's first team reps this week, brother.
So that's the thing, right? Is he seems to be getting every opportunity to make this roster in the defensive tackle room. And so my question is, who's he going to jump? But we're going to have to see, because you can't play that poorly with that kind of opportunity and actually be able to unseat any of these veterans or these guys who were drafted above you. I understand that you're you have the connection with Al Golden, but you're an undrafted free agent. Like that can only take you so far. It gets you on the roster, it can get you an opportunity, but if you're not playing well, Duke Tobin's gonna just he's gonna get you off the roster.
And to go along with that, like I'm glad you brought that up because he, like I said, he just had all the games that you just said. It wasn't very impressive. And then it comes out he was getting some first team reps for whatever reason. Again, I'm not looking into that too much right now.
Maybe the interior depth is just a little nicked up. I think
and they were just like, hey, go out there.
Right.
But to me, like he didn't play better than Taven Bryan or Eric Gregory. I don't think he's better players than them anyway. Like I talked about Eric Gregory a little bit last week as a guy that I thought could make the team. And, even he had a better showing than Howard Cross. And it's weird to, it's just weird. Again, I'm not trying to read too much in the first team reps, but at the end of the day, it still does mean a little something, no matter what it is. Like Taven Bryan didn't get them, Eric Gregory didn't get them. And I know those aren't big names, don't get me wrong, but
they do have two first names. So that's the problem.
That might be the problem.
That's it.
Actually.
That's clearly
we just figured it out. Actually, never mind.
I'm onto something. I'm telling you.
I think for me, and this is where we'll be on the show every single Wednesday. I think next Wednesday, I feel like we'll have a lot more to solidify, especially if this were to happen again, right? Because I do think that one time could be a fluke. Obviously he didn't have the greatest game last week. But if he goes out because he's going to get a lot of reps this week, and let's see what we got. I think we'll be able to tell a lot with, especially these guys. Once you get 20, 30 reps, you're getting opportunities. And I do think that this is the Bengals' chance to see what you got with these guys, the Eric Gregory's, the Howard Crosses of the world. See what you got with these guys. And I look for splash plays and I look for consistency as well. So we'll see who gets the reps. But I think all those guys at least are getting 15, 20, 30 snaps in this game against the Commanders.
No, that's a good point. We got a little over 800 people joining us. Thank you again for tuning in. Please don't forget to give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, share this on Twitter, share this with another Bengals fan who is looking for more Bengals content in their lives. Without further ado, let's get to everybody's favorite part of the night where we answer all of your questions. Please don't forget to drop them down in the comment section below. Daniel, take us away.
Perfect. All right. So we had a question from Diamond RG3 said, talking about Charlie Jones. Has he gotten better at wide receiver or is he just our special teams pro, basically?
I don't think. I mean, I would like to imagine he's gotten a little bit better in general since he's
I think he's just getting more run.
But yeah, I just think he's getting the opportunity. And again, the opportunity to be the Bengals wide receiver 4 or 5, like it seems weird, but like that's a position that's still going to play for us. We will go 5 wide. If, we will do these things, and if somebody goes down, like there's so many. The Bengals, like, again, this is being very picky about their roster, and it is the least of their concern. But having like a gadgety receiver is something they haven't really had in quite some time. And I think Charlie Jones can kind of start to fit that mold. That's why I was so high on Isaiah Williams and the way he fit into the roster, because he's that motion guy. He's that super fast guy that you just run all over the field and do things with. Maybe they're starting to try to see that in Charlie Jones a little bit more. There's no doubt he's a pretty solid returner. We've all seen it. We've all witnessed it. I just think they're kind of realizing we need to find this guy a role, even if it's 4 or 5 offensive snaps in a meaningful game and being the primary returner. That's probably what he is at this point in his career. I don't envision him leaving the Bengals and getting a larger role or magically taking on a larger role here in Cincinnati. He is probably a below average player that is fun in situations if you use him properly, and a pretty good returner. There are dozens of those in the league.
And one of the things about him, you just kind of go back to like Trent Irwin, for example, right? Of, hey, I remember we went to the game against the Patriots where I think Jamar was out. And this, like, Irwin is a guy you're like, how the hell is this dude getting 5-6 targets? And it's working. I think that's something where Charlie Jones, respectfully, in this offense, he's got the skill set to succeed. If there were to be an opportunity where somebody goes down, let's say both Burton and Yosivas go down, and Charlie Jones needs to get meaningful reps, I think he'd succeed. So I think that that's what you get now, especially the guy's been on the team for 2, 3, 4 years. He's consistent. He knows the playbook. He's got good hands. Give him a spot at the back end of the roster, and he's just kind of there as a, just in case factor. But couple questions. Dave's not here. Said, "Where's Matt Lee?" I believe he's returning from his injury. Same with Seth McLaughlin. So that's probably why.
Seth was getting reps, I believe.
We did not talk about that enough. As we
Yeah.
probably should have about
Well,
things to watch.
yeah. I guess if you want to go ahead and take that away as your
Yeah.
resident offensive line philiac, yeah.
I mean, in general, we didn't discuss Rivers much either. I talked about Caleb Etienne, of course, but we kind of touched on it a little bit last week to where you're not keeping 3 centers on your team. You're just not. That would just be plainly stupid. So what's that look like for Matt Lee? What's that look like for Seth McLaughlin? We finally have Jalen Rivers getting some guard snaps, which is massive, not only for his development, but probably for the Bengals' success in general. So when you're just looking at Matt Lee again, I know he's been banged up. Seth has been banged up, and I hate to say it, but at this point, it's probably just gonna be whoever's healthier, who's ever had the most reps, is probably just gonna win that job right now because neither of them can really stay out of their own way in terms of getting hurt. Obviously, if Seth doesn't, I believe it was his ACL before, maybe his Achilles. I'm not sure. One of those big injuries in the leg. He's not even a UDFA. He's a draftable player. He's a good player. Matt Lee is a good player, but he's also super small, and that doesn't really seem to be the MO for the Bengals. So they're 2 players that I don't want to say are necessarily outliers, but the Bengals are going to pick probably an outlier, whether a guy coming off a massive injury to take a bet on, or you're going to bet on a pretty small center. And
respectfully, I would take McLaughlin 10 times out of it. And that's once again not a shot at Matt Lee because he hasn't gotten any serious run, but I think maybe this is just more so the potential with Seth. Like that dude was good, man. And once again, we were at the combine. A lot of people were talking about Seth, and I'm sure people on social media were, but players were saying, hey, on the same exact offensive line as him in the same exact room, saying, hey, there's one guy that was helping me out. It was our center, it was Seth in the film room. So that's at least for my personal preference, I want to see that guy at least be in the building, whether that's training or practice squad for now, whatever it is. But I think he should get a shot at some point. We had our guy Dave's not here. He said, "Do you think that they will kick the tires on Justin Simmons, the safety?"
I don't think they kick the tires on anybody, barring significant injury. I think. Look, it is easy to look at guard and look at safety and say, hey, they should have done more to address that position in free agency, in the draft, during the offseason, during training camp, during OTAs, even this week, maybe even today, probably tomorrow. Yes, absolutely, they can improve there. What we've seen from the Bengals consistently in that giant stretch of time is they aren't interested. They have constantly overrated and overvalued their back end of roster guys. Something about their familiarity with them just makes them fall in love and overvalue the heck out of those guys. And you saw it with the back end of the roster guys for offensive line constantly as they just kept saying, no, we've got this 5th and 6th round project guy that we absolutely love, and he just toils around the back end of the roster for 3 or 4 years and then gets cut and nothing happens, right? And that's not a good way to live.
No, and I don't necessarily believe this about the safety room. I know Simmons is a bit different, like he's more of a proven guy, but there's going to be waiver claims that are more talented than our backup offensive linemen. There are going to be waiver claims that are probably more talented than some of the back end tight ends we are considering keeping on the roster. There are going to be waiver claims that are more talented than the last corner we keep on the roster. But as we all know, like Evan just said,
but they love Jalen McMillan, but they love DJ Ivy, but they love Deontay Smith and Akeem Adeniji.
They just do.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll say about that also is, hey, if you are considering Justin Simmons, he's a starter, like point blank period. I don't see a world where even him, you see this with a lot of guys, they don't sign to a team unless they are, hey, I am a starter. And I believe that's probably where Justin Simmons is. And do I see the Bengals signing him over Geno Stone or Jordan
for
Battle?
starter money? Do you see them giving some guy $6-7 million right now? I really don't.
It would have to take an injury.
But that's the thing, is you could have gotten a handful of safeties that probably give you as much, if not more, upside than Geno Stone for as much as he's making, if not less.
Yep.
What's he making, like 5, 6?
Probably 6
after taking that pay cut. There's guys who signed for 3 and 4 that
Probably better.
Right, and they didn't, right? And we know the Bengals love a good bargain, so I think that means they're content with Tyson Anderson and Dejon Anthony.
Yeah.
And
If Geno Stone went down season-ending injury, the conversation would be completely different.
right,
now,
or
but
very,
it's-
very, very wrong. They are
Yeah.
content with what
Yeah.
they have right now at guard and safety, which
doesn't
is
mean we
disgusting.
agree,
But yeah,
that's just the fact of the matter.
right.
For sure. Our guy CJD22K said a little bit of a random question, but with Futures Day coming up on FanDuel the 26th, are you guys going to be doing a show where you talk about the Bengals futures? And yes, we will be doing that, whether it's on the next show or the one right before the season starts. We will be discussing our favorite futures. And you guys can also go down to the description. Our team, Malik, our entire TWSN team's got a entire wealth of knowledge that they put into their bets every single week. So I would strongly suggest, if you guys are interested in betting content, go down below, check it out. But somebody was asking, Ryan Sparks, he said, what cut down trades do you guys see happening? And this, I'm guessing, is NFL in general driven, because I don't see the Bengals making any trades before the cut down.
Well, maybe not a trade. I don't know. It could be like one of those, you throw a 7th rounder to basically get the priority before they get cut, right? Similar to how the Texans did with the Bengals and Joe Mixon. What about Kyle Duggar?
Yeah, I was going there.
Right. Apparently, Kyle Duggar has
Which is
been relegated to the second team and fallen out of favor. Well, he's old regime, right? So he's kind of fallen out of favor.
But didn't they, I guess, extended him last year?
Right. So
Recently.
it is, maybe he's more of a box guy. Maybe he's more of a guy you already have in Jordan Battle. But dude, when your safety room's this piss poor, like just again, a guy you can have for a 7th round pick who is a veteran and a talent that you can feel confident in putting out on the field. I like Dejon Anthony. I hope that he turns out to be really freaking good. But like, if we're betting on players, Tyson Anderson this far into his career after how many injuries he's had, plus Dejon Anthony, I've seen Kyle Duggar do it. I haven't seen either of those guys do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at a guy like that as like, hey, that would be a guy I'd want to add.
I think with Duggar in general too, like I think I could see him being a guy that Al Golden just likes. He's kind of that hybrid linebacker role too. Like, so maybe you can just add him and he doesn't even take a safety off the roster. Maybe he takes Giles Harris off the roster. You know what I mean? That way, if somebody goes down, Duggar plays the box more. And that way, now you're not even losing a safety, but you just have more versatility. You got more flexibility, which is always a really fun thing. But if we're looking at some other potential, if we're really just being honest with just like flips of guys we're going to cut versus that we would keep here. I think I'm looking at the Panthers. I'm looking at a lot of their offensive linemen. Their starters right now are they just paid so much money to Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. They drafted Ike Ekwonu and they signed Taylor Moton to a huge extension. Yep. Like they have like Brady Christensen as a backup. I know they just extended him in the offseason, but again, he's slated to be a backup for us. Maybe he wouldn't be for us. Cade Mays, another similar name position with the Panthers.
That's a name, yeah.
Josh Nyman. Again, they signed him in the offseason, but again, these are guys that are backups that maybe we're looking at like these guys could potentially start for us. Luke Kandra is probably going to get cut from the Panthers as well. He's on the outside looking in right now. So like they have a number of like, or maybe if they want to keep Luke Kandra, you can go snag a Cade Mays or a Chandler Zavala. They have a number of options that are just probably better than what we have. Again, I don't think that's something they're going to do, but the Panthers have invested so much money into their starting offensive line that they're one team that I think could come off of their backups because of how much they have invested. And just in general, that's a rebuilding team.
Yep.
They will probably take whatever you're going to give them, or fill some other holes. That's a team that I look at right there
for sure. And I think obviously we have a couple comments about Kyle Duggar. Obviously his contract, I believe 4 years, 54. Bengals aren't going to do that. Like they're likely not. And that's why we'll see what they end up doing. But they're a team. If we were to predict what they normally do, it's normally after an injury. So as far as trade,
on wood there,
like as far as trades go, I think the big names. But we have a comment from Dave's not here, said off topic, but who starts at quarterback for the Elves? That was kind of going to go to that point. I do believe one of those guys is going to get traded. Non-Bengals related here, but I think one of those guys is going to get traded, whether it's Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel. And my pick would be Kenny Pickett ends up getting traded because they've got too many guys in their room. And what I would do, what I think Flacco's their week 1 starter. and I think Shador is their
I really don't know.
long-term project.
I mean, as dumb as it sounds, I don't think I'd be shocked if the Browns kept all 4 of them.
Yeah,
Well,
because you still get
it would be
Huntley
so
and then,
dumb.
yeah.
Well, Tyler Huntley's cut.
Yeah, he's
But
gone.
like, you know what I mean? Like, they're not cutting either of the rookies. They signed Kenny Pickett and Flacco.
They're just
like,
waiting for Deshaun Watson to expire,
you know what I mean? Like,
either literally or contract wise. Either
it's
one.
just that seems something very weird that the Browns would do. They don't like. You obviously, like I said, you're not cutting the rookies. You signed Kenny Pickett with probable intentions of him being the guy. I'd say at least giving him the opportunity to do so. And then you brought Joe Flacco back in, so it's like there's no obvious cut there. Again, maybe they will trade one to somebody who goes down, but again, like. If that happens, nobody's gonna be itching at the door to take Kenny Pickett.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Joe Flacco either. Like I know Joe Flacco's had some fun years these last couple of years, but again, like I don't know. That'd be very Brownsy of them to do, and it's something that really wouldn't shock me.
For sure. We have a couple more questions. Once again, we appreciate you guys. If you have any more questions, just drop them down below. And as always, we will always be answering you guys' questions on social media. You can just hit up any of us on in the description. But Rucci said, what is you guys ceiling for Shemar Stewart as far as sacks go this year? Ceiling and floor for Shemar Stewart, sacks specifically.
Floor would probably be 0.
Yeah, floor 0. I think now ceiling. This is like, I say ceiling is like 7.5.
That's about, I think, where I'd be at too. Because even I don't
couldn't quite get to 8. I wanted to,
because like I'm thinking about it too. I also say, does a change of Trey's there? Probably not, because then he just gets more attention, which probably isn't good for him.
right?
So yeah, I think that
and you're sharing the role. It's how many sacks can you get in between 250 and 400 snaps?
Yeah, the thing that makes him like he could be one of those guys that gets the sacks of the quarterback. You know, he tackles them behind the line when they're booting. That's like
the Vic Beasley sacks.
Yeah,
yeah,
like, which are important. Don't get me wrong, but like it's not like a.
But they're created by
sack.
Someone else.
Yeah, which is still good, and that's still what you want. But he's just an athlete. He can tackle a running quarterback 1 yard behind the line of scrimmage, and now that's a sack. You know what I mean? Like he can get more creative sacks than anybody else on the team. But I like having 7.5.
And it's funny that you said that. Just looking at the numbers, the second guy behind Trey Hendrickson every single year, Osai was 5, Sam Hubbard was 6. He had 6.5, and then somebody, I believe, Sam Hubbard again, had 7.5. So it's right at that range. If we're talking the second guy outside of Trey, that's been the numbers for the Bengals in the past. I think if we're talking ceiling, that's with a healthy Trey, that's probably what you're getting, the ceiling 7.5.
Like in the future, definitely he could end up being that 10 sack guy. But I mean, even with Rashawn Gary, like even with these guys who are more of that developmental power profile, like, and he's got more Ben and athleticism than an AJ Epineza, but like a Gregory Rousseau, like those kind of guys who are like, yeah, you got a little bit of wiggle, a little bit of juice, a little bit of explosion, but you're mostly like a big, powerful guy with good length.
Well, it's even, I'll check the numbers right now, but like you go look at, that's not even really Shemar's game necessarily. I think he is going to be much more impactful. I think, and that's all the things. You go look at the defensive rookie of the year, I believe last year. I don't know how many Verse had, but he didn't have 10. That's for damn sure. I think he probably had 8. And that's where, when you look at these guys, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Verse didn't have like 10 plus. Shemar's going to make his impact felt. And you would hope that it's not just in the sacks. Because a lot of times, and I believe that you have to finish plays, but I feel like a lot of times your impact is felt not with just sacks. So I think that I do think that 7.5 is that good number.
3 for Rashawn Gary as a rookie.
Okay. And we got a question, Evan. You can say the number after. CJD 22K, our guy, he asked the question. I forgot that this happened, but what's your guys' thoughts on the fight that happened in training camp today? Obviously, Shemar hit Joe.
I think
Lucas Patrick.
Murder.
Yeah, what's your guys' thoughts?
I think it's nothing. It wasn't like Shemar Stewart, like just, saw red and went after Joe. It's like the dude was apparently just like trying to fucking rush the passer and just like tripped, fell over, momentum's carrying you. Like it was nothing. It seems like it was sorted out very quickly. I do love to hear that the offensive linemen were actually defending Joe Burrow for a change. That's nice. It seemed like seemed like people could really just get shots in on Joe Burrow after the play, and the Bengals offensive line seemed a little unconcerned about it last year.
With, it being Lucas Patrick, who he's beaten, and, starting to fight is so – I hate it, truthfully. Like, again, it's nothing, but, dude, like, I know maybe Lucas Patrick is just hanging on for dear life over there, but it's to me, it's just, dude, like – It screams I'm butthurt that I suck and this guy is whooping my ass. I need to do something about it now that I have the opportunity to do
This dude's
so.
been here for 10 days
And
he's already
whooping
kicking
my
my
ass.
ass.
That's exactly what it gives. It gives this guy's here. I don't know what to do. I have an opportunity to kind of overshadow those things by doing this nice thing.
I'll have you know, Lucas Patrick is a quality guard in the NFL.
Like that's the vibe it gives me, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, and I think that's something you love to see a offensive lineman rally behind their quarterback. Once again, I didn't see the official fight, but I saw the play. I'm not going to stand for any knock against Shemar Stewart. Dude's playing football, and if it would have resulted in injury, sure. But what I saw he tripped before even getting to the quarterback. So I don't think Shemar intentionally was going after Joe. And all I hope for the offensive line is, hey, in the future, in the battle of, in the play, if something like that happens and your quarterback does get hit, I like to see my guys rally behind Joe Burrow. And I would hope that that's the case because that builds camaraderie within your offensive line. I'm not saying go out there and punch a guy, but if Joe Burrow gets hit, many times we saw that last year. Many times whether it was, Max Crosby, obviously it was friendly, but hit him. Many times the Steelers ran Joe Burrow into the ground. I would like to see the offensive line back up Joe Burrow, but I'm not reading too much.
I will say it is nice that Lucas Patrick is doing it because if anybody's going to start a fight in a game, I hope it's Lucas Patrick.
If anyone's going to get thrown out for something,
somebody better comes in.
We don't want Orlando Brown getting thrown out for anything. No, we're good.
No.
You hang that,
you're
brother.
good too. Anybody else I can kind of live with.
Right.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I know we had one last question on how highly are you guys expecting? We touched on the starters, but how much are you expecting out of the starters for this preseason game against the Commanders?
I think I need to look into how much more what the Commanders' plan is because truthfully, like I support them playing, but if you're going to continue to see backups with that first group, that ain't much of a point, man. Yeah. Like, I want them to play, I want them to iron some things out, but like I do also want them to be tested slightly. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be super easy. So if the Commanders are already starting their backups, they're probably getting a drive maybe for me. There's no point to risk that against backups, even if you're really going out there against quality competition, just, for a drive or two, I'm all for that, or a quarter, or whatever. But like as soon as the backups come in or the backups come in, just get them the hell out and let's move forward.
And I'm with you. I'm with you for sure, at least on the offense side. Defense, I think, is a completely different story of, hey,
the defense can play as much as they
want. They need the reps, but offense.
Okay. You play a 19-game season.
The offense. Yeah, the offense for me personally, I don't care to see him for 2 full quarters. And I thought last week when you looked across the entire NFL, that was the perfect amount.
Dude, last week is exactly why I'm like, why does Joe or Jamar need to play? We know how good they are. They know how good they are. They are still
good.
If
Washington was going to play their starters for a drive, let's go for it. Let's go for a drive and then get out. But I'd have no interest in them going back out there and playing against backups.
I know. I look at that and I'm like, oh, we've already got like Geno Stone's nicked up, and now we've got BJ Hill's nicked up, and now we've got Mike Gesicki's nicked up, and apparently Miles Murphy was nicked up the other day in practice. And it's like, okay, God forbid that happens to Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, or one offensive lineman. Like that's where I'm at, where I'm like, dude, like, yeah, I get it. Like, it'd be nice to have 10 to 15 extra like live game reps. Goddamn, dude, like that risk is tremendous to take.
I wanted to ask you guys another question before we leave because I just remembered it. I can't believe we're not doing a joint practice this year, and that really frustrates me. And I know we've talked about how I feel they are super important, and then it kind of just brought up the question to me, like, how much more beneficial is the starters playing in the preseason if they're losing all the joint practice reps that they've gotten the last few years too? Like, to me, it's something that I don't even know how much more beneficial this process is, period. I still appreciate them trying something new, but not having a joint practice to me makes them playing the preseason. Like, I feel like those are almost worse reps than a lot of these joint practice things are. And I kind of just wanted to get your guys' opinions about kind of how we're approaching it. And because I was all for them playing the preseason if we had joint practices. Let's get them a quarter, and then you still have the competitive of the joint practices. But now we're not getting either, it feels like. And
I think the problem with joint practices is players end up getting way too high, and then they can't play the game anymore. Weed is a hell of a drug. So yeah, just lay off that when you're on a football field. Keep that at home. No, I always said joint practices were better because you get to rep the most important live game scenarios, right? You get to go against another team in repeated red zone drills, right? Where the area is condensed, the competition is intense, and you don't know the offense or defense as well as you do your own teammates, right? So you get to rep more of these short yardage situations, the red zone situations, the ones that actually matter, as opposed to repeatedly going 3 and out, or, 6 and out and then punting back and forth. Like, that's not getting you a ton of really like valuable reps.
No. And one thing too, I think that's important, once again, we appreciate everybody who's watching, not only on YouTube, but we got people on Twitter. We also have a Twitch. So we appreciate everybody who's supporting the show. And as always, guys, we are going to be interacting with you guys on social media. But the biggest thing for me is it helps the coaches know who should be getting reps. It helps the coaches with the depth chart. Like, hey, I'm seeing this guy get one-on-one reps. I'll use the Panthers as an example. I was looking at, their depth chart, wide receiver depth chart, and they've got a lot figured out now because of preseason and these joint practices. Hey, guys like Xavier Legette are falling behind Hunter Renfrow, Adam Thielen, because those guys are proven pros. And it's clear, hey, you get those reps against opposing team in practice, you get to see a lot more. So I am a fan of the joint practices. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for when it comes to the questions. All
right. Well, I guess that's where we'll end it for tonight. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Please, before you go, don't forget to like and subscribe. Remember, as always, we will be back next week recapping the Bengals game, preseason week 2 versus the Commanders. So don't forget to tune in. Thank you all. Appreciate you. Hoo day.